Before we started recording, I was just talking about how I found your work, and it was actually through Substack. I think the article that I saw originally was the one where you talk about Ikigai and how it basically ruined your life. I guess most people have heard of Ikigai. It's this idea that you have like the thing that you're really good at, the thing that the world needs from you, the thing that you can get paid for. And ultimately, it's like a Venn diagram, and it all merges onto this ideal one thing that you can do that will fulfill you and get you paid and basically be your life's purpose. How did that ruin your life?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it didn't totally ruin my life as a bit of hyperbole, but I was upset about it for many years. I encountered this diagram like years ago on the internet, and I tried to fill it out, and it was always in the back of my head because the culture of work sort of drills this concept into you, not specifically ikigai, but this idea that you need to find your one calling, your one passion. You need to figure out like what's your role in the world and what's your contribution going to be, how are you going to make an impact in the world. And we have this pressure that we put on ourselves to find one thing, and there's entire books written about this, just finding your one thing in life. And I just found it frustrating as a octopus kind of person, or as a multi-talented or multi-interested person who likes doing a lot of different things. I found it frustrating because I felt like I didn't have a one thing. I couldn't figure out what that was. And I did this exercise to try to tie all my different interests together. Like, is there a common thread here? And I just still couldn't find one. And so I gave up on it, and I just felt like it didn't work for me. Like, it just didn't align with my personality type. So I wrote this article about its history, which is kind of fascinating. The diagram itself was never part of the original Japanese concept of Ikigai, which is by a lady named Meiko Tamayo or something like that. And she wrote a book about this concept, and it doesn't have anything to do really with the diagram or finding your one thing. And the diagram was added later by two different people, kind of like gelled into becoming what it became in popular culture. But none of these things were really, the aspiration to find one thing was not part of the original Japanese concept. That blog post or newsletter post kind of took off. I mean, for me, it went viral. Like, I've never had anything get more than like 100 of anything. And so to have like hundreds of people commenting, and I think it's over 1,000 likes or whatever, was just kind of surprising. I was like, wow, this really kind of hits a nerve with people. So it didn't really ruin my life, but it did sort of redirect me and make me embrace more of who I am and just say, okay, why do I have to like use someone else's framework? Why can't I come up with my own? And that's my hope for people that read it, that you don't have to fit yourself into boxes that other people create, that you can kind of invent your own.
Yeah, I definitely felt like that for me when reading your article, that it was almost like a release in a way. Like, I think feels almost like a pressure, or it has in my life. And I think it's a running theme on this podcast, talking about like identity and like how it impacts us and shapes what we do and how we think about what we do. But there's an element of pressure, I feel like, and I don't know where this came from in the last, I don't know how many years, that you should find your purpose and find that one thing that is going to fulfill you. And then make also that into your career, like that, make that thing the thing that also sustains you, not just creatively and not just with like meaning and with your passion, but also like financially. What was the moment for you where you realized, oh, wait, I can be a generalist, like I can be an octopus? Like, where did this idea come from for you?
Yeah. Well, I've always been a jack of all trades kind of person, even as a kid. I was doing all kinds of things when I was a kid. I played tennis, I played the trumpet, I like built things out of Legos. I was just like very interested in all kinds of activities. But when I lived in Los Angeles, I was hanging out with some people who were jokingly talking about spirit animals, like, what's your spirit animal? And I kind of thought like, I don't really know, but I kind of thought maybe I'm an octopus because I like doing a lot of different things. And this was many years ago. This was long before I started writing on Substack about generalism. But after I was laid off in 2023, and I did a sabbatical and was trying to kind of figure out what I want to do when I grow up, this analogy sort of came back to me, and I encountered other people who were talking about generalism on the internet, and I thought, yeah, this is kind of me. I'm sort of broadly speaking a generalist, but I like the octopus analogy. I didn't really like any of the terms that are floating around there for this kind of person. There's polymath, there's a Renaissance person, there's multi this, multi that. And I'm not opposed to any of those terms if other people like them. I don't try to dissuade people from using them, but I like the octopus because A, it's an organic creature. It's more akin to us than some kind of dictionary definition of a personality type. And it also has a lot of metaphoric qualities that I think are interesting to ponder for people who consider themselves this kind of personality type. And so that's kind of where it came from. And then I decided to make my Substack kind of just all about that and started writing about it. And I've embraced it for myself as a way of living and working.
How do you actually embrace that? Like, what does it look like day to day now? Or maybe even going back, like from the sabbatical to now, I would also love to understand, like, how has it changed over time, but also just generally the practicalities. Cause I think for me, I do have multiple passions. I love doing multiple things, but I think the biggest challenge is making the time for everything. And again, not feeling the pressure to go more in on one thing to make more progress on it. And then like bouncing between ideas and there's also context switching. Like it can also be tiring and a bit overwhelming, I find. How do you deal with all of that?
Yeah, it's interesting. One of my early posts, there was someone who commented on it and just felt like this is just overwhelming. Like, I can't do this. And then in my head, I was kind of like, well, maybe you're not an octopus. And not to be mean about it, but just there are certain personality types that I think can handle this. Like if you have ADHD, for example, which historically, unfortunately, has been viewed as like a deficiency of some kind, you're doing this all the time. Like context switching, multitasking comes naturally to you. And I haven't been diagnosed with it. I don't have like I think there's 3 or 4 criteria. I only have like 2 of them, so I don't consider myself someone with ADHD, but I have some of those tendencies. And so over time, I feel like you can figure out the balance that works for you. Like it may be that you're like a 3 tentacle octopus and that's your max capacity and you don't have 8. And I never tell people like try to find 8 exactly. Maybe you just decide that you're going to have 3 tentacles and that's good enough for you. And so it can be overwhelming. But I do think there's a certain personality type who actually enjoys the complexity of 8 or more things in their life that we function perfectly fine, like jumping around from topic to topic. When I was in corporate, like I worked in marketing and design and stuff, and I I was in a role that serviced like a lot of different people in a lot of different departments. So like on any given day, I'd get emails or calls from like all over not all over the company, but from different people in my department. And I would often have to just drop whatever I was doing to pay attention to whatever hot item was on the task list for that day. And so, and I was fine with that. Like I actually enjoyed that. I didn't there I mean there were times when I didn't want to be interrupted if I was doing deep work, but like for the most part, like I was okay with interruptions and I would talk to anyone who came by my cube or called or whatever. So I think there's a certain type that kind of like enjoys the chaos of it to some degree. And I feel like that's something to embrace. Like I feel like that is a skill. It's historically been seen as like a problem, but I actually think it's a skill. Like if you can do 2 things at once, like you can be more productive or you can intersect things that other people can't intersect if they're only just like focusing on one thing. To your question about the evolution, like after I was laid off and went on the sabbatical, I sort of was still in that one track mindset. I was thinking, okay, well, I'm going to be a marketing consultant and do brand work because that's my forte area. And I opened a brand consultancy practice and I need to find brand clients. But like I quickly found that I actually want to do other things too. Like I imagined, okay, let's say I had 40 hours a week of full on clients doing brand work. Would I really be happy and enjoy that? And deep down inside, like I felt like I was doing it more for job security than for personal fulfillment. And I think I started at that point to realize like I can't do this. Like I can't just like do brand identity work or brand stuff like for 40 hours a week for the next 20 years of my career until I retire or something. So it was a gradual evolution. Like I didn't have one day where I said, I'm giving up on single track mind thinking and I'm going to be an octopus. It was a gradual evolution of thinking over time, over probably the course of like 12 to 16 months or so.
Listening to your answer there as well, what resonates with me, I have similar questions to you about like, what do I do for the next 30, 40 years, whatever it is until I retire? Like what is like the infinite game, as I've heard it called as well? And I have a similar feeling that, okay, well, I don't want to do just my day job forever until I retire, like 40 hours a week and only have these like slim hours of time outside of work where I do other stuff. But at the same time, I find it a really hard thing to answer. Well, like, what would I really do with all that time? And how would I balance all of the interests that I have? I mean, how do you know if you've found the right balance. Do you feel like you have found the right balance now between all of the different activities and interests you have?
Yeah, so two things. I mean, you're kind of pointing at one question people have is like, what are my interests to begin with? A lot of our interests have been suppressed over time because of career requirements. So we've set aside a lot of our interests. And one interesting thing about octopuses is that they're constantly exploring things with their tentacles, right? And if you look at videos of octopuses, the tentacles at the very ends of them get extremely thin. Like they're very, millimeters thick. And so they can explore all kinds of things with high sensitivity and independently. And so, one thing I encourage people to do is like just start exploring things, anything, any small thing that piques your interest, just add some more suction cups to it and grab onto it a little bit more and tinker with it, sense it, smell it, play with it, see if there's anything there that interests you. And if not, just discard it, like octopuses pick up stuff and then they realize, oh, it's just a rock. And then they just drop it, And so for the exploration part, I encourage people to do like really small explorations. Like you don't have to invest a whole week or even to do this. So that's one thing. But then in terms of like balancing the portfolio, so to speak, this is a challenge and other people have brought this up to me too. So the first thing I want to say is that it doesn't have to be eight equal things. Sometimes and the diagram some of the diagrams I have on my Substack are like eight equal circles, but I'm trying to figure out if there's some way to like not have it be equal. So that's the first thing. Like I think we should set aside the need to like have it be like equivalent things. It could be that you have like one particularly strong tentacle. Again, back to the octopus behavior. Like if you see them doing something, sometimes like two or three of their tentacles will be engaged in some activity and the others are just kind of like dangling, doing nothing. They're resting or they're just sitting there, And so you don't have to deploy all eight at the same time. Is another thing. Like you don't have to deploy all eight at the same time. You can just deploy one or two and really kind of invest in those and then leave the others be for a while. So I just want to relieve people of the pressure to like deploy everything all at once. And then in terms of just like balancing out your life, everyone has limited time in the day. We each have varying amounts of free time or exploratory time. Like if you have a full-time job, you've got to dedicate 8 hours or so of that to your job. And so you are relinquished to the nights and weekends to do your explorations. But that's fine. Like that's a good place to start, right? We do have a lot of discretionary time. If you really probe into how am I spending my days, I can almost guarantee that everyone watching this wastes more time on social media than they would like, right? Like you scroll an hour and then you say, I don't have time to do something. Well, you kind of do. And I struggle with this too. I'm not saying it to be preachy. Like I wrestle with social media a lot. And I feel like if you really want to devote yourself to something, like just spend some time off social media, win back that time to do the things that you want. And then, kind of lastly, to round it out, for myself, I don't really try to balance things. I guess I don't think of it like, okay, I'm going to dedicate 20% of my week to this activity, or I'm going to time block. Like, I don't do Pomodoro or time blocking or any of those kind of calendar things. Cause again, like back to I feel like those are artifacts of this generalized feeling in our society that we have to maximize efficiency over everything. We've got to have a time slot for everything. We've got to have a definite start and end to everything. Like if you think about SMART goals, they have to be measurable. They have to be, control. Like everything we do just feels like artificially constrained in some way, in the name mostly of efficiency or money making. And I just feel like, do octopuses live this way? Like, do octopuses have a calendar? Do they leave their den every day thinking, okay, like for 45 minutes, I'm going to go find food. And then I got to get back here and I got to clean the den. And then I have to like look after my children. And then I have to do they kind of just are more organic and fluid and go about their day and see what they discover as they're out and about. And so I try to do that too. I have in the past like had pretty strict schedules, especially when I was working. My calendar was filled with meetings and things I had to do. And that's fine, but that can be exhausting too, right? Like on one hand, it can be tiring, like trying to like figure out what you should do and do personal development work and find a balance in your hobbies. But on the other hand, having an extreme schedule can also be exhausting and stressful in a different way. So I think each person kind of has to find out like where on that spectrum are you in terms of like how much structure do you like to have versus how much fluidity do you like to have? And then occupy that space on that continuum and then figure out like, well, what's the best way for me to live? I'm this kind of person. Like here I am on this continuum of extremely rigid thinking and extremely fluid thinking. Like I'm maybe here. So if I'm here, then what do I want to do to actuate that in my life? And how do I want to live to match up with how I like to work? So the answer is different for everyone. So I don't have like a formula to answer your balance question. I feel like everybody has to kind of figure that out for themselves. But it helps to start from a place of like, well, what kind of person, what kind of worker am I? How do I like to use my time naturally, as opposed to trying to find a system and squeeze yourself into that?
Ultimately, it sounds like what you're saying as an answer is also like you need to listen to that internal compass and like how you're actually feeling and what is actually drawing you towards it. I mean, I know I'm very guilty of like falling into that optimization trap where I want to make the most of my time. And I know I have a lot of different things I want to do. So I'm like, okay, I need to make sure I schedule everything perfectly. I need to make sure that I spend this much time on this thing and this much time on this thing. And in the end, I realize what I'm doing is also essentially I'm guaranteeing that I don't have any time for like play and exploration and like trying new things because I've managed my time so well that there is no time left to do anything new, right? Like I've pre-optimized the whole week. It's not fun anymore. It's almost ironic if the thing I'm looking for is like fulfillment and joy. I'm guaranteeing that I can't have that because I've pre-selected, I've made all the options a week in advance. And I'm like trying to go through that list and do all the things. And I get to the end of the week and I'm exhausted. And I'm like, did I actually enjoy that? Did I leave any time for like serendipity and play? And what you said with the octopus, yeah, that feels like a good mental model. Borrowing your metaphor, I also thought about the fact that octopuses have free hearts. That almost feels like how it is for me sometimes as you said, a creative generalist. Like I have different interests I want to follow. And sometimes they're competing in a way as well. Like something is drawing my attention that isn't logical, but I feel like a pull in one direction and I at the same time feel a pull in another direction. So I have like
Yeah.
two things that I really want to spend my time on and they feel like they're competing a little bit.
Yeah, and that this is where the metaphor kind of gets interesting. And I try not to take this like whole thing too far, like
Sure.
it can get kind of ridiculous. But
Sure.
I do think this creature has been around for like, estimates like 3 to 500 million years. It somehow managed to survive with all these unique characteristics and like the three hearts, brain cells in its arms kind of thing. It is a different kind of thinking, right? Like it has a different kind of consciousness and a different kind of balance, even with this unusual appendage, heart, brain, tentacle situation, physical body situation. And so the hearts thing, like the octopus has somehow figured out how to manage this. And I don't know if it uses its heart as an emotional center or a place of passion or whatever, but like for us as humans, like I kind of like what you're saying, because in a way, if you think about it, we all have multiple passions. Like if you're a parent, you love your kids. Like if you have a pet, you love your dog. If you have a job, you may or may not like your job, but people have things at work that they really like doing. You may have a girlfriend or a boyfriend that you really love, right? Like in life in general, we all have multiple things that we really care about. And so to think about it like, okay, well, I'm a complex creature. I'm a human being with multiple interests. I also can be passionate about more than one thing at a time. I may deploy that passion in sequential order, right? Like you can't like it's hard to like walk your dog and be doing deep work working on a mobile app or something at the same time. Like physically, we can't do certain things at the same time, but it doesn't mean you can't care about both things, right? Like you can care about things that are happening in the world, you can care about things that are happening in your personal life all at the same time, but we have to just think about how to deploy our energy. And I want to just tie this back to the calendar thing just a little bit. Like if you think about like where did the calendar come from, or where did clocks, for that matter, come from, right? And how did they become so prevalent? Like earlier in the interview, you kind of asked about like where did this need come from to be this certain way? If you think about it, like a lot of time and calendar things were evolved in the way they are because of work. Like a factory you had to punch in and punch out at a specific time so the employer would know how much to pay you. You had to like have a schedule because schools like operated on a schedule. But a couple things come to mind. Like one is not all cultures are obsessive about time as we are, say, in the US or in Germany. There are a lot of cultures where, like in Latin America or Africa, where time, or even in Asia, where time is just much more fluid. Like if you say we're going to have some kind of meeting at 10 o'clock, in some countries, like everyone will be there at 10. In other countries, people will trickle in like 10:15, 10:20, 10:30, even 11, 11:30. Like they'll just show up late. And that's okay. Like people are okay with that because culturally that's just understood that that's how we think about time. And so this obsession with it, like sometimes we have to think about, like, is this always the way humans have lived? And is this the way all humans across the globe live? And for the people that don't live this way, like, what are they doing? And are they okay? It seems to me that a lot of people are surviving just fine with no Pomodoro system or no time blocking or no obsessive calendar checking. Like, or some people, I don't wear a watch anymore. I think you can live other ways. These are choices that we're consciously making. Like we think we need a calendar because it's on every computer and phone and everything for work. Like there's calendars all over the place. But like, do you really have to use it? And do you have to use it in that way? Do you have to use it with those particular techniques? Like I would say, like a lot of it are artificially self-imposed things that we think we must do, but we really don't have to. Like you can live a different way. So I hope, like, I guess the theme's kind of emerging in this conversation, which is I really hope people just kind of examine things that they're doing in their life and ask hard questions about it. Like, where did this come from? Why am I doing it? Do other people live this way? Do I have to live this way? And is there another alternative? I hope this is kind of one thing that people start to take away from this thematically.
As you've started doing that work for yourself, did you feel pressured or like questioned by the people around you? Or did you have people being like, man, what are you doing? Like, this is crazy. You're going to do 8 different things. You're not going to have a full-time job. Like, did you feel this pressure?
A little bit, but I wasn't telling a lot of people that that's actually what I was trying to do until I so so there was a period after the layoff and sabbatical where I was just kind of like, okay, I think I'm gonna kind of live this way, but I didn't write about it or anything. So I felt no pressure during that time. It was more just me finding myself like who am I going to be in this season of life? And so there was this kind of incubation period, if you will, where I felt no pressure because I didn't want outside inputs, honestly. Like I didn't really ask people for advice. I didn't seek out a coach. I think it was internal work that I was doing at the time. But when I did start writing about it, I had some people asking like or questioning like the path, is this really feasible? But I think more people were fascinated and interested and curious and wanting to understand because it was breaking something open for them as well, right? Like it was breaking a box that they'd been living in and freeing people to think a different way about careers. And so on balance, like I had way more opening positive interactions with people than closing, shutting down pressure, like push me back to what I was doing before kind of conversations. So yeah, a little bit of both, but I don't know. I'm getting to the age where I just don't care what other people think. I'm like, okay, like if you think it's more secure to have a full-time corporate job, I just found out it's not actually very secure. Like I just got laid off, in what was arguably a secure, good occupation. And a lot of people have been through that this past 2 or 3 years, right? Since the pandemic, there's been thousands and tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people have lost what was a formerly secure blanket. And now it's gone. There's different ways to think about security too. So to answer your question, I mean, not that much. I actually didn't get too much pressure from people to go back to what I was doing.
To be honest, I've had the same experience where when I first started actually doing the creative projects I wanted to, and for a while there was a stage where I was like, "Ah, I shouldn't make time for those. I should focus on my career and climbing the ladder." And then when I got to a certain position, I thought, "Oh, okay, this obviously didn't make me creatively fulfilled. Like I'm going to now start doing those things." And I had some reservations about telling people because I thought the reaction I would get was, I guess, my own internal voice. I thought they would be like I was and say, "Well, are you sure you can really handle doing multiple projects? Are you sure you want to spend time doing that?" Like, or the big judgment, like, why is he doing that thing? Like, why is he making a podcast? And the reaction I got actually also talking to people in my day job was almost always positive. People were always like, "Oh, that's so cool. I've been wanting to write a book for ages, or I have this art project I've been wanting to do. How do you find time?" Like, if anything, as you said, it seems like people are opening up more about this kind of thing. There's more and more discourse going on about, like, how do you make that happen, which I think is really cool. The one thing I
Yeah.
don't know how to combat, and I wonder how you've done this, is resisting the urge to monetize everything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so the need to make money obviously is there for everyone, unless you're independently wealthy or won the lottery or something. I don't have enough money to retire, so I have to like make money somehow. And so it's always a pressure, but I also have lived eras of my life where money was just like it felt like it was everything. Like I just need money, I need more money, I need more security for retirement. I just need to accumulate more wealth. And when I look back on those seasons, like they weren't particularly happy seasons. Like I was making money and it was good, but like I wasn't feeling necessarily fulfilled. Like the things that made me happy during those eras were things outside of money. We could spend hours just talking about the topic of money itself. Like people have all kinds of views on it. But I do think for people who are struggling with money, I do think it's important to like get a foundation of money somehow or another, whether that's a full-time job or some tentacle that is a money-making path that seems more feasible than trying to sell art, for example, can be challenging to make a living, but selling social media posting services is arguably easier than selling paintings, for example. I'm not saying it can't be done, but if you're in a situation where income is really tight, I would encourage people to start with like just getting some security financially because there's nothing more stressful and misery inducing than being broke, than having financial struggles. I've had like a couple periods in my life where I just was not totally broke, but like had hundreds of dollars left in my bank account or something, and it was extremely stressful. Like it was hard to like have hobbies or go play tennis with friends or like do anything else when like, oh man, the electricity bill is coming due. Like I gotta find a way to pay this. And so to have financial struggles, I think impedes your ability to do other creative things. So that's my first point is like if you're struggling financially, like a lot of what we're talking about with the octopus life is more are like higher up on the Maslow's hierarchy, I would argue. Self-fulfillment, like finding things that are to help you self-actualize or that you enjoy. So like get those base levels of your pyramid like in place first. But then like if you have some amount of security and you're interested in trying to turn passions into jobs, then I go back to the experimentation approach where you could try little things to see if they make money and be intentional about that, right? And don't be ashamed of that. Say to yourself, I want to try to turn this into a revenue generating tentacle. And then you may have other tentacles that are just for fun. Like I have picked up pickleball a little bit recently and like I'm not making any money from pickleball. It's just something that seems kind of interesting and fun and it's social and stuff like that. But like it's not going to make me any money, but I think of it kind of as a tentacle. It's an interest area. So I think the need to have money will drive a lot of your decisions. I mean, you have a job, for example, so you have a foundation which empowers your ability to explore some other non-money making things. And I think that's kind of a nice balance, right? Like if you have a source of income and then you have some stuff that like makes no money at all, but it brings you immense pleasure and joy to do. So if you can have those two things, like that makes for a pretty decent life, right? Like you can cover your expenses, like feel secure, but then have fun. So yeah, it's tough to formalize it. I can't give someone a formula or a system for it because the tentacle portfolio of our listeners is different for everybody. So what I'm trying to do, and this is one thing that I kind of get bugged about in the whole self-help coaching course industry is that someone figured out how to do something and it worked for them with their personality and their resources, and then they try to turn around and sell it to other people who don't have the same personality, don't have the same resources, don't have the same access to information or technology or whatever, and then those people struggle to replicate whatever this person's trying to promote. And so I think especially for octopus people, like my encouragement is like find your mix of things and decide like which ones are going to make money or not based on what abilities you have to make money. So don't try to you can't just do brand consulting because maybe you have no experience in brand. Like that's one of my strong tentacles, but like I can't tell people yeah, be a brand consultant. Like I made a good foundation for my octopus. And like you can't unless you have that experience, like you can't do it, right? So it's not replicable. So you got to figure out what works for you. And yeah, the commerce part's always tough. Just money's always like this challenge in the background.
I mean, to be honest, the reason I asked is because even thinking all the way back to the first question about Ikigai, I think for me, I had some kind of default script running that said, like, if you have a passion that feels like a creative passion, like, for example, I love photography. I think when I first got really into it, there was this question of like, oh, maybe this is the thing you should now try to monetize. And I've had that with almost every creative endeavor I picked up. I'm sure that says something about me and the scripts I've grown up with. But I always had this voice in my head that as soon as I picked up a new thing, very quickly it became a question of like, okay, you're having fun with this. How can I find time to do more of this? Well, if I monetized it, maybe then I could justify spending more time doing it. And I think that can very quickly turn into like a trap, right? You basically just build yourself a new job and then kill the passion for that thing, which I'm
Yeah.
sure I've done, and it sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to work in graphic design, and I encountered a decent number of people who loved graphic design, but like the job of graphic design ruined their interest in graphic design. And I do think this, especially with creative pursuits in particular, or artistic pursuits, music, painting, dance, etc. Like people have natural interest in these things and passion, and it brings a lot of joy. But the moment like it becomes an occupation, like it can get ruined in some way. And so I think you have to be protective of the ones that you want to enjoy as a hobby and just say to yourself, like, this is not a money making tentacle. This one's just for fun. And I'm just going to let it be that and not try to make money off of it. And then you might actually like enjoy it even more or do it even more because you're free from the constraint of having to figure out how to sell it somehow. I've seen this over and over in many people's creative careers that like the commerce part just ends up ruining the interest in it and even makes them like leave the occupation or leave the activity altogether, which is unfortunate.
How conscious are you of the like tentacle configuration you have at a given time? Like, do you intentionally think about the kinds of energy that goes into each project and where you want to put that energy? Because I could imagine that you could end up with two or three things going on at the same time, which demand the same kind of energy. Like two or three things which are very, very artistic at the same time. I could imagine that might be hard to balance. Is that the case? Like, do you think about the configuration or you just like go with your gut?
When I first started this journey, I thought about the configuration a lot more, but as it's gone on, like it's become more organic and fluid, and I feel more free to kind of spend time on whatever I feel like spending time on that day. I mean, I have constraints, like I have a contract, for example, to do consulting. Like I can't just push them off or ignore them. I have to like deliver on certain things. So, in that sense, like I do have some structure or some areas where I can't just let it go or let it slack. But aside from that and the creative stuff, like I allow it to be more fluid. I do think one of the things I'm kind of learning about this is just like unrigid I don't know if this is a word, like making myself less rigid in thinking and behavior, like to de-rigidize my life, I guess is a good way to put it. And I found a lot of joy in that, just the freedom and flexibility to kind of do what I want on a given hour or in a given afternoon has just been good. I feel like I guess maybe some background is helpful here because maybe you relate or some of your listeners relate that for most of my life, I lived a pretty rigid life in the sense that, things were very structured. I, went through school, I went to university, I got a job. Like my life felt very structured and templatized in a way. And that became like the default setting. So it is hard to like escape that. But I found that I'm just as productive or just as interested, just as energized, and just as engaged without having to like think even too much about the octopus framework, even. It's a springboard and it's an organic thought framework that helps me kind of like get creative. It's like it's given me ideas on how to live, but I don't like adhere to it so strongly. Like I don't have uh, a map out on my wall of like, here's tentacle number one and number two and number
Right.
three, and like, which one am I going to spend time on today? Like, it's not that rigid, right? It's in the back of my head, I guess, and it comes to the fore when I talk to people about it, like I am now. But day to day, I actually don't think about it too much. It's more about, you mentioned kind of internal listening, or like, looking within a little bit. It's more like that. It's kind of this intuitive knowing that, okay, today, like, I think there's energy flowing towards this particular activity, so I'm gonna go with that flow and see where that leads for this afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, you have contracts and obligations, but ultimately it's like, again, following your intuition a little bit. I'm not feeling bad for that. Like if you wake up and you're drawn in a particular direction, then it's like go in that direction and see what happens. Maybe tomorrow you wake up and you want to go and do something else. But like ultimately giving yourself time to be a little bit more free and like experiment with stuff when you feel the urge to experiment with stuff.
Yeah, because people say inspiration is fungible, or like it can disappear or evaporate. Like if you feel inspired to do something, if you wait even an hour, like that inspiration could disappear. Like if you have an idea, you should write it down. If you feel like doing something, if you have time and capability at the moment, like you should try to just like look into whatever your heart is calling you to, because that feeling can disappear like pretty quickly. So yeah, like I've been trying to do that more. I feel like I've not been great at that. Like I often get distracted. I mean, this is a downside of being this kind of personality. You get distracted, right? So you just find shiny new object over here, and then you drop whatever you were working on. But like I've been trying to be a little bit more conscious about that dynamic and put a little bit more energy and effort into things that feel inspiring in the moment, and reduce distractions, but also just pay attention more to what's inspiring from the inside.
Yeah, that's one of the things when I read about this kind of lifestyle, one of the things that kind of like scared me a little bit was like, well, doesn't that mean I'm basically just never going to achieve anything? Like I'm never going to get anything done. Like I know this is maybe my struggle again, like with photography, for example. I feel like if I don't have a long running project where I'm not sharing my work, then what's the point, right? Like it has to lead somewhere. I need to release or ship something. I don't know. Maybe that's again just a personal like script to break out of a little bit. I mean, also then the counter to that is that I recognize that also can stop you from actually just having fun and playing with stuff. Like you said, it's fine maybe to pick up the rock and then drop it and go do something else. Like that's
Yeah.
it depends what success is, right?
Right. Yeah, it depends what your definition of success is and what you're trying to accomplish in life. But I've also found that if you think too rigidly about it and try to like map out, for example, like what you see happening, that may or may not materialize. But there are some benefits to just being more fluid. People have done sort of experiments on like if you give this group of kids like no, and there's kind of an end goal, but you give them no instruction for how to do it. And then you give this other group of kids like the same end goal, but you give them instructions. Like the kids in this group, like come up with more creative solutions than the kids in this group. Things like that where serendipity, unforeseen happenstance, and discovery in the process can open up new things for you that you can't preconceive. And so I do think that that component of like over planning can be dangerous sometimes, or overthinking things before you do them can be dangerous. But to your point about like not accomplishing anything, so this is a definite risk of the octopus life. Like let's just take extremes, for example. Like there are, say, professional athletes. So I play tennis. Like Roger Federer is one of my favorite athletes. He retired recently, but he dedicated the first 40 years of his life to just playing tennis. I mean, he did other things, but the vast majority of his time and efforts were dedicated to playing tennis. And because of that, he became the best in the world. And well, people will argue with me if he's the best with Novak. I don't know if you watch tennis, but like at one point, like he was arguably the best tennis player in the world. And he became that because he did only one thing, right? So if you want to do extreme have an extreme sense of accomplishment, then it does absolutely make sense to dedicate yourself to something, to some one thing, or a narrow set of things. But if you also, at the other extreme, look at someone like Leonardo da Vinci, who is also extremely accomplished, famous, the world best in the world at whatever he was doing maybe at the moment, but he had like a dozen interests. Now, many of those tentacles like didn't make him famous. They were just things he may have done for a day or a month or even a year that went nowhere. but didn't turn into anything notable. But because he tried so many things, he actually did end up accomplishing a lot of interesting things too. Like maybe he wasn't the best architect in the world, or maybe he wasn't the best artist in the world, but like he was pretty darn good at a lot of things. And that made him a really interesting individual historically. So I guess like, and again, like I can't prescribe that you'll be able to accomplish anything noteworthy in an octopus life. You may very well toil in obscurity, make a living for yourself and like never be famous, never be known for anything. 20 years after I die, like no one will even remember who I was. Like, and that's okay. I just feel like I'm doing the best I can. I'm living the best life that I know how to live and enjoying it as best I can, trying to find as much meaning as I can out of this era of life. And if it turns into something that I can call like a significant accomplishment, well, then great. But if it just turns into a lot of like minor accomplishments, then that's okay too. Like, I think I'll be okay with that because I at least like was true to myself. I was true to who I am, true to how I'm wired, true to how God or the universe like made me. I'm just like being my true, pure person and activating the gifts that I have, deploying the mix of interests that I have. And I think that will prove valuable to someone somewhere in the world. I don't exactly know how, but I don't have to win Wimbledon. At this point, like I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be the best in the world at anything. There will not be a Wikipedia article about me after I die. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case. And I'm like okay with that, It just not everyone can be the best at something. Not everyone can be notable. Like it's just you don't have to have that as a goal to have a good life, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Again, it can be freeing to realize like you don't have to be the best at everything and dedicate your life to everything. I mean, I think that's also the cool thing about being a generalist and being into many hobbies. Like I used to feel this guilt in a way where like I almost felt apologetic. Like I didn't want to tell people like that I tried so many different hobbies because I think that there'd be judgment about like, what, you did that for like 2 months and then never again? Like that's weird. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's cool. Like I'm only going to be here once. Like, why wouldn't I want to like try out playing the drums for 2 weeks and then the guitar for a month, and then I want to go and learn how to ride a unicycle for 6 months because for some reason I got really obsessed with that thing. I mean, like, why not play around and like just try a bunch of stuff out? Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, the accomplishment there is that you got to try a bunch of stuff out.
Yeah, because for our personality type, I think the joy is in the discovery, in the learning, the attempt to master something, even if you don't achieve like world-class proficiency. Like the fun is in attempting world-class proficiency, even if you know you're not going to get there. Like you mentioned a unicycle, uh, just trying it is fun for us, right? Like the attempt is the joy. And so if you attach like an outcome to that, it can ruin the joy of the process. And so I think I think people have drilled into them this idea that every endeavor you do must lead to some place, some noteworthy accomplishment, place, or make money, for example, like we were talking about before. But that kind of thinking ruins the process. Like there's joy in the journey. You can have fun and richness and life in doing something even for a month and then quit. I have a draft in Substack about it being okay to quit. And I tell this story when I was in high school, I tried out for the football team because like I was like a lot of my friends were on the football team. I'm not a big guy. I'm like 130 pounds. I'm skinny. Like I don't have a football body at all. But I thought like it'll be fun. Like I know how to play football just from playing in the park with friends. Like let me try out for this. So I tried out for football and I enjoyed it for like a week and then I started to not not enjoy it. And so the way it worked in my high school, like you actually started the football season began at the beginning of the school year, but to join the team, I think it was like a month before school started, you started practicing. Like you had to go during the summer and start practicing on the football team, start lifting weights, start getting in shape. And so like I joined the football team, like it's maybe a week and a half into the season, like school hasn't even started, the season hasn't even started. And then I decided I want to quit. And so I'm in the locker room and I was nervous about this too. I felt like, oh, I'm a quitter, like we haven't even played a single game and I'm quitting. And my friend, like we were in the locker room, like people were putting stuff into their lockers. I was taking my stuff out of my locker, and one of my friends was like, "What are you doing? Like, are you quitting?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm quitting." So I go to the coach who has this like separate office in a cage, and I say, "Can I talk to you for a couple of minutes?" I don't know this guy at all. Like he's a teacher at the school, but I never was in a class with him, so I don't know him at all. He doesn't know me. And I say, "Coach, can I talk to you for a minute?" And he says, "Sure, sit down." And I don't even know if he knew my name, but I was like, "I don't think I want to play football anymore." And he was like, and he was kind of disappointed. He was like, "Oh, why?" And I said, "It's just not fun. Like it was kind of fun at the beginning, but like I don't really like all the stuff we have to do." And I think I'm more of a tennis guy. Like even back then I knew I liked tennis. And I could tell he was kind of like he wasn't mad at all, and he didn't give me any lecture about being a quitter because, like, he could see that football did not match who I was, and he was like, "Okay, that's fine, Dave. Like, you know, you have other things you can do. Just put all your stuff over there and enjoy your summer before school starts." And that was the end of it. And in one sense, like, I felt bad because I did feel that natural pressure from society, like, "You're a quitter." But on the other hand, I felt like I had some fun. I'd put on the pads. We had some scrimmages. Like I played with my friends. Like I could say like I was on the team for 2 weeks, and then like it ended, and I was upset about it maybe for a day, and then I was like I went on with my life, and I just started doing other things, you know, and that's okay. Like I feel like life is full of quitting if you think about it. You know, we quit all kinds of things all the time, whether it's hobbies or and eventually, like, we're all gonna quit life. Like, we're just all gonna die, and you'll have quit your entire life. So it's okay to like quit things. I think we need to like destigmatize quitting. I mean, and if you think about it with kids, I think good parents let their kids quit all the time because they want them to explore a wide variety of things. If you send your kid to band and they hate it after 2 weeks, you're not going to force them like, oh, you got to stay in band for the whole year and then you can quit. I mean, some parents do that, but like if a kid express interest in something else, like good parents, I feel like say, oh yeah, go try that. You know, try this, try that, and they want kids to have a sense of self-discovery and have a sense of agency and ownership in what they do. Like the worst kind of mental space you can get into, I think like continues often into college, is like you feel pressure from somewhere or someone to like do a certain thing that does not align with who you are. It just doesn't match your personality or interests. And that's like the worst kind of trap, you know? And that can extend into careers too, where people just feel like I have to be a lawyer. My dad's a lawyer. Like everyone in my family is a lawyer. I have to be a lawyer. And then they get a lawyer job and they just hate it. And then you feel trapped because you never had a chance to quit. Like I wish after freshman year, I knew I wasn't going to be a lawyer. I should have quit. You know, it's much harder to quit something when you've invested 20 years in it than it is after you invested 2 months. So I kind of feel like quitting is a good filter for discovery. It helps you like get to know yourself better. It helps you know what, it also helps you know what you don't want. There's a lot of these things that try to help you like figure out what you should do or find your passion or whatever. But, and a lot of it involves like sitting around thinking about it. And I would say like, well, another way to discover your passion is to discover what you don't like. And the only way to discover what you don't like is by quitting a lot of things. So go ahead and quit. Like it'll give you a data point. Okay, like I don't like that. Why don't I like that? There's something about it I didn't like. I didn't like the rigidity of it, or I didn't like what was required of me, or I just don't think that way. Like those things help you get to know yourself better as well. So I encourage people to try and quit all kinds of things. Do it as much as you want. It's good for you.
It feels often like the unsaid expectation is like if you quit, you fail. And
Yeah.
so you have to keep going because, you know, if you quit, then you look like a failure. Like, oh, you're just backing out. You don't have the strength to continue and all that kind of like, then you go into like hustle territory, right? It's like, feel the
Yep.
pain and do it. Like, delay happiness, delay joy, like, keep going. I, I love this statistic, and I don't know how true it is, that they say the second week of January is where most people quit their New Year's resolution. And I read
Yep.
about that and I Googled it. And I was a bit sad because every single article I could find about it, it was all quite negative. It was like, don't be someone who quits on Quitters Day. And in the end, I basically wrote an article that was like, I hope you quit something today. Like, happy Quitters Day. Let's turn this into a thing. I'm trying to make this a thing. So if anyone is listening and wants to make this into a thing, I think we should like turn it into a day of joy, International Quitters Day. Like, like write down all the things that are not making you happy in your life that you feel like there's a sunken cost or you like obligated to do it and it's not bringing you joy. And if you can, just like cross out one of those things, like just quit it and just be so happy that you quit it. Because it's sad to keep doing things just because of like, yeah, some just because you feel like you have to, or because there's some shudge somewhere in your head that says like you have to continue doing this thing. You also wrote an interesting article about how often people start with why, and maybe it would be a better thing instead to say why not.
Yeah. So Simon Sinek has this book that says start with why, where I think I kind of got the first concept from. And then but I was also thinking this sort of relates to the quitting thing. Like, why not? Like why not try something? Why not let it be you? And I think like trying to find your why. The reason there's so many books about this is because it's hard to do. Like it's hard to envision like your life's calling. It's hard to envision your why. It's hard to find your purpose in life by just sitting around and thinking about it. And a better way to discover those things is by a random variety of attempts at different things. And then you might discover your why by figuring out a lot of like, why not? Like you do a lot of things, you experiment a lot, you explore with your tentacles, and then you may discover a why that you wouldn't have discovered if you sat around trying to discover your why. So I like to try to have people just think about like, well, why not? Why couldn't I do something? Like, why can't I have a weird career experiment? Like, what's stopping me from doing X, Y, and Z? And often, like, there's nothing really stopping you. It's just your imagination or your societal pressure that you're inventing for yourself that's stopping people from trying things. And I get the whole worry or shame or that you're going to try some why not thing and then it doesn't work out and then it looks like a failure or it looks like, oh, I mean, I'll just share a personal example. Like, so when I started consulting, like when I was working in corporate, like I would interview people for jobs who were trying to like find a job with the company I was working at. And I'd look at some of their resumes and some people would have on there like some employment at jobs. And then there'd be like a year of consulting and then they're applying for this job. And in my head, like unfairly, I think I would kind of judge them like, oh, did your consulting fail? Is that why you're like looking for a job? But then like I found myself in that boat and I was like, oh crap, like because I was applying when I first got laid off, I was applying for jobs. Just I was still in that corporate mindset. Like I need to find a new job. And I started consulting and I was still interviewing for jobs. And it was in the back of my head, like, people must think I'm a failure because like I have on my LinkedIn, like I'm doing this brand consulting and it hasn't been a smashing success, but I wouldn't say it's been a failure either. Like it's been okay, like I've made a sustainable, like not as much money as I did in corporate, but like it just, I don't know. I get the embarrassment thing. Like there's all kinds of things like that, particularly around career where people worry about how they're perceived. And there's some validity to this, especially if you're going to stay in a traditional employment path, right? You do have to think about your resume or think about how things look professionally as you apply for jobs. But I also feel like if you're going to break off this path, like you could ask yourself why not do something different or at least attempt something different or even while I have a job, like do something weird on the side. Why not? There's no harm in trying. And the worst thing is like getting to the end of your life with a long list of things that you had ideas to do or interest in doing and then like never having done any of them. I feel like that's going to be a huge regret for a lot of people. And it's a regret, like I'll probably have some of those regrets. Like I actually do already. Like I have some regrets that I had opportunities to do certain things at a certain age and I didn't take them and I regret them, but like I do just feel like, yeah, why not at least try some of them? You don't have to do everything on your list, but like, geez, just like do at least one or two and see what happens. Like there's no harm in it. And if you do feel embarrassed, if it's a professional thing and you feel embarrassed, then just like don't post it on social media. You don't have to tell anyone you failed. You can keep it to yourself. Then you won't get any grief from anybody if no one knows what happened. There's a lot of things you can do kind of experimentally in private nowadays. It doesn't all have to be on the internet. So yeah, I just think why not try?
There's a really good Stephen Bartlett quote, which I love, and it's something like, most good things are on the other side of embarrassment. Most interesting things that you can do, you have to feel the cringe feeling and then go and do the thing anyway, because it's so easy to talk yourself out of stuff because of the fear about like what other people are going to think, or what is it going to look like if I quit, or as you said, well, what if I post about this or I tell people about it and then I change my mind, or what is it going to look like on my CV if I take a career break for 6 months? Like, so many things at the root of it. The reason of like, why should I not do this thing is because you have a fear of embarrassment or cringe or judgment. And it's just such a crappy reason not to do it. Like, just go do it. And I had that
Yeah.
with this podcast. I was so worried about what people were going to think of me. Genuinely, I don't know why. The real answer to that is actually no one really cares that much. By the way, like you
Yeah.
care 100 million times more than anyone else cares about what you're doing. It's so
Right.
freeing once you realize that you can just go do anything you want.
Yeah, and it's especially bad in the era of social media where people are sitting on their keyboard behind the privacy of their screen and they can criticize you all day. Like many years ago, I tried to learn skateboarding and I made a video about it and I put it on YouTube. I was a total beginner. Well, I think when I was a kid, I may have tried to ride one, but this is, as an adult, I bought this longboard and I made a video about it. And of course, like some skater kid from who knows where has to comment on my video, like basically like you suck at skateboarding. I'm like, yeah, because I'm a beginner. I just started. So of course I stink at it. But it just kind of like I could see why people don't want to do things anymore is because you just receive so much like hate mail over the internet and trolling. And it's just a sad dynamic that I see in the social media landscape that is just so easy to like criticize things. And I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Like sometimes I've criticized somebody on the internet for something they did or I thought was wrong, but I try to like avoid that. I try not to do that. I don't really, I hardly ever do it, but like I have like long ago, like gotten fight arguments with people on the internet and just realized that like it's not fruitful. It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help you because someday you're going to be the one that has to put something out there. And is that the kind of hate that you want to receive? Like, is that the kind of response you want to get? Is to have people, you attempt some dream and like people just step all over it, like total strangers from across the world, like step on it and crush your dreams. Like, is that what you want? So I wish people would be more civil on the internet. And I think it would help people be more free to experiment with things. But the good thing is, like, you don't have to tell anyone. Like I said, you don't have to post about it. So, like, I do things like I have like personal projects or whatever. I haven't said anything about them on the internet just yet because they're so nascent. I want to protect them from critique or being like stepped on. So, yeah, it is a sad dynamic though.
Do you feel more courageous or like less worried now than you did before about putting stuff out there and even publicly announcing projects and just doing stuff?
More courageous than before. But when I first started, like even when I first started writing my Substack, I was like really afraid. Like I'm not a very public person on the internet. Like I don't use social media that much. And so like Substack was, I think, some of the most personal things I've shared on the internet. And I have a couple posts like during my sabbatical that I put up that I actually took down because not because I was embarrassed of them, but I just felt like I shared maybe a little bit more than I wanted to. Like people don't need to know everything about your thought process in life. So it was a gradual process of feeling more comfortable about sharing things. It took a while to kind of get comfortable with it. But now I still am cautious. Like I still am somewhat guarded just in general, not necessarily because of trolls or whatever, but more because I just don't feel the need to like put every last detail on the internet somewhere. It's not fun for me. I don't find it that fulfilling. And so and I also just yeah, part of me doesn't want the critique either or the questions because some of the things I'm doing are kind of odd in the work world in particular. I do think I'll probably, like we talked about before, I'll probably get more support than hate, but I'm still cautious about it. Like I'm just not like that public a person. Like even doing these podcasts, like I did my first podcast to talk about octopus life last year. And then I did a second one. And even that, I was like really nervous at first. I was thinking to myself, like, okay, like I have to be careful what I say. It wasn't live, but I was kind of like self-censoring myself a lot during that very first interview. Like I was thinking, okay, like what do I want to share about this or what do I not want to share about what I'm doing? But over time, I've become more comfortable with it. I do think if you want to promote anything, so that's the balance, right? Like I have projects that need promotion in order to succeed. So I do have to like be public about that. And I'm getting more comfortable with that kind of thing. Yeah. But it's a balance. And I definitely kind of protect some information about myself. Yeah. Not to be secretive, but it's just like you don't have to know. Like, why do you have to know? Why does the internet have to know about all this?
Yeah, I had this conversation with a friend where I said like, "Oh, I'm still kind of getting nervous before I do episodes, and I'm nervous to put some stuff online sometimes. Like it feels vulnerable, but, I'm trying to work through that." And the question they asked me was so good because they were like, "Would you want to be the kind of person that like didn't feel nervous at all? Would that be a good sign that you are so confident in everything you say that you have no worries about what people think of you and how you act?" It's freeing to realize that no, I don't think I would want to be that person as well. Like it's probably good to have some sense of balance and to think about your impact of your actions and your words and what you're sharing. Like probably makes sense that you think about it a little bit.
Yeah, it shows a sense of conscientiousness, right? That you are aware of your role in the world and what putting stuff out there could do for people. And you just want that to be a good experience, right? Like you don't want to put crap or nonsense or negative things into the world. So I think it's a good trait. I mean, it can be debilitating if it goes too far, so much that like you don't even do the podcast when maybe you should. But like I think there's a healthy amount of self-regard and self-editing of just care and tact about what you put on the internet. So like I think it's a good thing. And even just talking to you, I just feel like you're a thoughtful person. You obviously care about what you're doing. You want to be conscientious about it. And I think those come across as good traits as far as I'm concerned.
I hope so. And I think the nice thing on the internet as well is like I've heard of it described as like the serendipity machine because I mean, we were talking about this right before we started recording, right? Like without Substack and stumbling into each other's work and then reaching out by email, those conversations wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have had the pleasure of meeting you and chatting with you. And there are so many other connections like that. And another thing we mentioned beforehand was like, if you're in a traditional career and no one's really talking about all of the other creative things you could be doing in your time, and you're like thinking, okay, well, I'm only exposed to this traditional lifestyle where I have a job and then I focus on climbing the ladder and that's all I do. If you're not exposed to more ideas and to more ways of living and to people doing different stuff, it's hard to even realize that that's an option, right? Like, and I still think it's something that I'm trying to figure out. Like, how do you find like mentors and peers like outside of the traditional structure? But I do think the internet does play. There are lots of negative aspects of it, especially with like modern social media. There's a lot of stuff like I don't like about it, but I'm really trying to consciously use it in ways to make new connections and find people who are doing interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that personally. I think it's a hard challenge sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, it's been interesting since writing about this. I've had multiple people reach out and ask just to have a call, like if I would chat with them and stuff. And I've taken most people up on that, and it's been great. Like when I had a corporate job, like no one was asking me to have a call. Like I didn't get like the only thing I got on LinkedIn was people trying to sell me something. But you know, but after writing about this on Substack and LinkedIn, like I started getting inquiries. Oh, this is kind of interesting. What I resonate with something you wrote. Like, can we have a chat? And it's been great. I've talked to people from all over the world about the. I mean, not a lot, like less than a dozen people, but still, it's just some interesting connections. People that I never would have met or interacted with before, who seem like genuinely like great people to know. And I'm always happy for those conversations. They always leave me feeling kind of enriched myself. And so, yeah, like I haven't necessarily gone out seeking mentors per se because, like, I I haven't found that many people like doing what we're trying to do. So it feels like a lot of carving my own path. But thematically, back to what we were talking about before, I also feel like the people that have tried to formalize this too much, it just doesn't fit. Like I've kind of investigated like what are other people saying about portfolio careers, for example. But I just haven't I found good inputs, other people that are doing it, but like it's hard to find someone who's successfully it's hard to find someone who's successfully done it. there are a lot of people talking about it, but I don't know how many people are actually like doing it. Back to my gripe about coaches and people like putting out
Yeah.
courses for things that they, it's kind of like, well, I didn't accomplish this, but I learned a lot along the way. So I'm going to make a course for other people to not to fail at it too. So, but anyway, like I feel like there's a handful of people that are actually doing it, and they have varying degrees of publicness about what they're doing. But I just haven't found like a really strong mentor for the exact way that I want to do it. And so it has been a challenge. I do feel like I'm kind of carving my own path. I mean, not that, portfolio career is, so I didn't invent that idea. Like Charles Handy invented the idea in the 80s. So it's not like this is something I've created and must trailblaze. Like I must be like the first person to like succeed at this kind of thing. I don't see it that way. I'm walking on a trail that a lot of people have attempted before, but it's just in the modern iteration of it. Like it does seem like there's very few people actually doing it. And I can't even say, like, I'll just speak frankly, like, I can't, I'm writing a book about this. And some people have asked, like, where's your book? Like, you were talking about a book like a year and a half ago. And I'm like, I haven't finished the book because I haven't succeeded at this to my satisfaction, thus that I feel I have any authority to write a book to tell you how to do it. You know what I mean? So I feel like I have a half, like 2/3 of the book is it can be written, but the remaining third is just I'm living the remaining third as we speak. So I cannot in good conscience, like make a course about how to have an octopus portfolio career when I have not succeeded at it myself. And other people would argue, like and I'll go back to tennis, like there are some tennis coaches who are coaching tennis players, and those coaches have never won a Grand Slam tournament in their life, but they're coaching guys or, or women who are trying to win a Grand Slam. So you could say like, well, you don't have to like succeed at everything to be a great coach. And arguably, there's a lot of like great coaches who are better at coaching than they are at playing, and so they became a coach. And there's one guy in particular who's kind of like famous for this. But anyway, I feel like there's a dearth of mentors in this space. Eventually, like if I feel comfortable that I have achieved the octopus life, whatever that means for me, and write the book, I may coach people on it if that's what people like come to me for. But in the meantime, I'm actually more interested in people who are in the trenches right now, just like you, who are who have this concept in their head of how they'd like to live and work, but have not quite materialized it, but are wrestling through the issues to get there. I feel like those are the people I really want to like find. That's like my tribe right now. Are other people who are have a vision for this kind of life and are trying to make that happen. So I've been thinking about like making a community for that, not a community where, hey, I have like 8 videos for you to watch, and then you can comment
Costs
on them. And
$5,000.
yeah, and like for a limited time, it's only $2,000 because the normal price is $7,000. Like I'm thinking about making a community of octopus life strugglers. Like you are in the same boat as me, and let's share what we're doing to figure out how to do this. Because I actually think that's more fun than I'm the guru. I have a formula. Try to adapt your life to my formula, and I hope you'll succeed. You'll likely fail, but like that's the promise, the false promise that I feel like is often held out. And so what's more interesting to me are dynamic individuals who are saying like, yeah, I want to try this too. I figured a few things out that you may not know about that might be helpful, but let's share what those are. And then we can do this together. And then hopefully some of us achieve this. And then more people can see that it's doable, right? Like that's kind of if I do anything along the coaching community course line, like that's what I would probably do, not record videos of myself, talking about how I think this is going to go before it's actually gone that way. I just have a credibility issue with that, personal credibility issue with that for myself. So,
I am curious, how would you know that you were accomplished enough living the octopus life to then finally say, now I have the authority to write the book?
that's a good question. I haven't really thought about what success looks like because I've been on this meandering, organic path of exploration. But I guess One thing would be financial security, obviously, like we talked about, right? Like if I can only make $8,000 trying this, then like that's not going to work. Like I need this to be my career. Like I need this to work as a functioning occupation. So like one would be a monetary amount, and I won't say what that is, but I don't know. It has to be above a living like it can't be poverty level either. Like to me, like ramen fire level is not would not be considered a success. Like it has to be enough to cover all my expenses and then some and feel like I'm saving for retirement and like, like it's a viable, feasible way to work. So that's one criteria, I guess. The second one would be it can't be all one thing. Obviously like if I do something, put out a product or whatever, and it's like one tentacle and it makes me $500,000 or something, but it's only one thing, then that's not a success either, because then that's not an octopus life. That's just going back to single-minded, what's your one thing kind of career. So that wouldn't be a success either. So it has to be like, let's say at least two, but ideally three or more things that are all sort of operational and functional and they're working in the world some way. They don't all have to make money like we talked about, but like it has to be like somehow actuated to some degree in the world. So I think that mix of things, like it has to make me enough money to call this a true career. It has to like be more than one thing, and it has to like actuate somehow in the real world to my satisfaction. I feel like I could say like, okay, like I feel like I've accomplished this or done it to a meaningful way where I could credibly say like, this is what my octopus career looks like.
Talking about resources that you're considering to make or not make yet. And the classic question I have at the end of the show is also what books or recommendations do you have for other people to check out?
Yeah. Well, before we start talking, Paul Millard's Pathless Path, I read that during my sabbatical and it was terrific. It's what I liked about his book was it was exactly kind of what we were just talking about. Like he shared a lot of his journey. It was an incomplete journey, but he had figured out some things along the way. And it was inspirational to me to think like, oh, well, here's a person who was on the traditional path and he broke off of it and went and moved to a different country and started a new life and is making it work. And so, like, if he can do it, like someone like me, I think I could do it too. So that was like really inspirational. The other book is called The Great Work of Your Life by Stephen Cope. It's not autobiographical and it's a little bit on the spiritual side. Like he uses the Bhagavad Gita as a source text to help people figure out kind of like what's your role in the world or what's your calling or mission in the world. And so it's not an overly spiritual book, so I don't want to scare people away with that. He just uses that kind of as a springboard to talk about calling because one of the characters in this story is kind of like wrestling with what they should do. And I found that to be really good. I wouldn't recommend that for like young people or new college grads. It's a little bit deeper, more for like mid-career people. I think it would be a really interesting read. So that those two books were like pretty influential on me in this journey. And then for generalists, obviously Range by David Epstein is a good book. And I'm reading 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Berkman right now, which
I love
is
that book.
yeah, terrific meditation on time in general. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been recommending to people lately.
Nice. As always, I have more reading to do. I agree in terms of Pathless Path. I think, like many people, that was quite a mind blowing book, at least for me, to see someone who's actually on that path and figuring it out and writing about it and thinking about it so openly, and to
Yeah.
see that there are possibilities for me at least, even if I haven't quite achieved the perfect layout, whatever that looks like. I think it was
Yeah.
very instrumental in changing my thinking as well.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Like when I finish my book, I hope it has the same kind of effect that Paul's book had. Like tangentially, it feels kind of like akin to what he's written. I mean, obviously mine would be through the octopus sort of construct, but I would love for people to kind of read my book and feel like it just broke open something for them, like just got them out of a box they were stuck in, and it helps them see that other ways of living are possible and other ways of working are possible, and you can embrace more your true self. So yeah, it was a great book. And I was glad to meet him too. It's always fun when you can meet an author and experience them in person, ask them questions and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm really glad I got a chance to meet him.
My secret goal now, I'm going to write it down, is like get Dave back on the podcast once he's released his book.
Yeah, sure. Would love to come back. No, it's been a fun conversation. Would love to do a part two.
And for the people who make it all the way to the end, I always like to ask if you have one key takeaway that you'd like people to go away and think about once the show finishes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's related to what I just said, mostly to think that there's other ways to live, that we have so many default settings that have been implanted in us by education system, by government, by our parents that are modifiable and do not need to be there. You can carve a different path. You don't have to stay on that set trajectory. There are other ways to live. And sometimes it just takes some intentional doing and self work and pondering to figure out what things are keeping you down and then have the courage and bravery to attempt something new. I hope that's the main thing that people take away from my story.
Amazing. Dave, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.